Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Senior Pastor, Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, hello, Northland family and friends. Welcome to another episode of Extra Takes. Hey, I'm your co-host, PJ, along with Matt Shiles. You know that was a joke. Because the reason why I say Shiles is because I did a PowerPoint presentation.
Yep.
And I was putting, all of the staff where they, belong. And I put Matt where he belongs in commission, overseeing the entire commission arm. And instead of putting Shiles, I put Styles. So now because I put that, now your last name is Styles. So we've changed your name.
I had a congregant come up to me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And said, hey, you must be Matt Styles.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways. Yeah. But his name is Shiles.
Like Smiles. Well, that doesn't help if I'm trying to correct from Styles.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like something with the SH. I don't know. Normally people put a C.
Oh, yeah?
Or a D.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Childs or Childs. Yeah.
Shields.
Shiles.
Wow.
Not many people have met Shiles, so it's a bit unique.
That is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, how you doing?
It's Monday, man.
Yes.
Even though this airs on Wednesday.
Yes. Monday. You got one more crack at it.
I don't know if I want another crack at it.
Yeah.
No, it was good. It was good. It's different.
You love these TED series. You live for these. This is what you live and breathe.
But here's what I want you to know, though. For those of you who have been part of Northland and you've been part of these TED series, as we continue to do them, you have to see the pattern. You have to see the pattern. Because one of the things that I was thinking about is, and that's kind of why we started the whole Genesis series last year, because I walked through Genesis 1, 2, and 3 like in depth.
Yeah.
But what I do is every year I pull out that message and I frame it through culture. And so it's the same sermon, but I'm applying it in a different realm. And so that's where I'm like, you're going to hear, because the goal is that you start teaching this and that you understand that all of life is found in this framework. But I do like it because it's giving theology and formation. Theology and formation. But I don't know how, again, I don't, I'm sure there are people who don't appreciate it, but I hope that you will, I do hope that people appreciate it, that.
Of course.
It gives you a little bit more than, don't idolize sports.
Well, of course. And kind of what you're getting at, both sermons you've done before and then also the series, the TED series you've done before. I was thinking about even the series on, the music. These aren't the same messages, but they rhyme, right? Like they feel similar, and you do that a lot where you will, repetition's a good thing. Yeah. Repetition is a leadership tool, and when it sounds like you've heard it before, you probably have.
Probably have, yeah. I'm
and
a one-trick pony.
You said it, not me.
I'm a one-trick pony.
I was going to say that.
But that pony has a lot of sides to it.
There's a lot of points to that pony.
A lot of points to that pony. Exactly.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
3D, 4D, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
You keep on coming up with new points.
There you go.
To the same sermon.
To the same sermon. Yeah.
That's really funny. Well, let's dig into this. This is going to be a three-week series. Yep. Faith in Sports, June 13th through 15th. You asked the question you want us to consider: how should Christians think about and engage with sports? And you're really wanting to give us a theology of how you ought to think Christianly, biblically, theologically, and missionally about sports. Now, the outline, you gave us a definition of sports, and then you dug into a history of sports. And then we looked at, that was talk 1, then talk 2, we looked at a framework of sports with the faith framework. And then we looked at the implications of the Imago Dei and the distortion. The relate, create, and operate, and then, Genesis takes us back to Genesis 1, 2, and 3, but then the effects of 1 and 2, and then the effects of Genesis 3.
Yeah.
Right? You even pulled that out in your definition of the mission of God this week. We always look at the mission of God as redeem, and you threw in there create, because that's where it started as create in Genesis 1 and 2, and the only reason it's redeem is because of the fall of Genesis 3. So that was, I think, to your point of this is a sermon that you've done before, but you were packaging it in a new cultural way, yeah. And it doesn't feel worn out, tired, rote, because it's fresh, it's applicable. I mean, we view things differently.
Well, and it may at some point for some people, but just remember that we'll be growing and getting new people. So people said in this message this past weekend and Monday, they never heard those messages. So that's where, but that's part of where you want it to become old for you, because you're like, oh, I know relate. But here's where it gets unique or different or specific. So when you go back to Genesis 1, when I actually preached that message and unpacked the relate, create, and operate and the function and all of that, I give examples, but I don't go in depth with those examples. What I do in the TED series is I go in depth with those examples, but those examples are actually big arenas, are big areas of our life. So technology, because I would have never been able to go that in depth,
right?
For that particular message. So I take 3 weeks to actually go in depth for one topic that really does intersect our life, and how you understand it in the theological framework of Genesis.
Yeah.
So that's where. So basically, it becomes an applicable and application series that's framed from a theological perspective about something that is meaningful in our life.
Yeah. So when you think about this series, I'll start our questions out a little differently today. You often say how the goal of preaching is transformation. So what type of transformation do you want to see out of us, individually or us corporately as a church through this series?
Yeah, I would say, I would say formation. I mean, because there's so many things that go through my mind. Like, it's probably, it's just tiring being me. Like, that sounds weird, but because, the 2 questions that I said, think and then engage and play.
Yes.
Okay, that goes back to the faith framework. The top layer is belief. The bottom layer is behave. Mm-hmm. So when you think about formation in your life, you have to think about belief and behavior, that your belief drives your behavior. If you have wrong belief, you'll have wrong behavior. Mm-hmm. If you have wrong behavior, you need to make sure that you don't have wrong belief, or that you need somebody to help you be accountable to what you believe. So that's the goal of so transformation is the goal, but from a biblical standpoint, I think maybe even formation is a good word too. And the only way you're formed, and the only way, in some sense, you're transformed, is belief and behavior. And that's why I've started to add in my prayers, not only to give us eyes, ears, a mind, and a heart, but actually, Spirit of God, would you give us power to do? Because you could see it, you can hear it, you can think it, believe it. And you can even receive it and internalize it, but unless you act on it, you've done nothing.
Is it those big words, orthodoxy and orthopraxy?
That's it. Those are 2 big words. So orthodoxy is right belief. Orthopraxy is right behavior. And that's formation. And sports, and I actually do believe that when you look at our culture, our culture mirrors the distortion of God's image on our life. And it's not just our culture. I mean, the entire human history has mirrored and reflected a distorted culture. So it's not anything new. But what what tends to happen if we're not careful with right thinking, right believing, right engagement, right behavior, is that we tend, as Christians, as the church, we tend to be co-opted by the culture. And so we'll act just like the culture and do exactly what the culture does, because in some sense we don't know any better.
Yep.
And I believe with all of my heart, there are so many areas that we've been co-opted. This is why I do these series. We've been co-opted politically. You just got to go back to that series. We act just like the world in terms of our engagement with politics. From a technology standpoint, just because it's there doesn't mean we use it the way the world uses it. And so, and I'm trying to really balance it with my kids, because my kids, I mean, now they're the digital native, and they don't know any better. But I'm like, oh my gosh, what we're seeing from a research standpoint of now Gen Z being so addicted to technology in their phones, it's leading to a distorted image. And I'm like, man, we got to redeem that. And then when I look at sports, and I had to set up the fact that I've been in sports all my life. So for really 40 years, I've been playing sports. I started when I was 4 years old. And I look at the landscape, and now my kids go to a Christian high school, or they did, and now my two older ones, they're out of school. But I'm like, man, we act just like the world. We coach just like the world, but we slap Christianese on it, and I'm like, man, that's not honoring. And so this is part of where I can complain about it. I don't want to complain about it, because the Bible tells me do everything without complaining and grumbling. So what do I want to do about it? I want to educate, and I want to educate around this idea of formation.
Well, and that's where, it seems so basic, but you talked about this is the way the world thinks. After you gave us this history of sports and how it has converged to shape modern sports, and you said as Christians we just don't do what the world does, and that's so simple but so profound, and it's just like, well, duh, but we have to constantly be reminded of that.
And it would have been fun. Gosh, it's just so hard to. That's why we have extra takes, right? But if you think back to if you're old enough and you've been in church long enough, if you think back to the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, one of the ways that the church combated sports in America is we created our own baseball fields, church basketball courts, and we called them family life centers. And then we had, particularly the mega churches in that day, they actually had the recreational leagues. And then we created Upward Basketball, and it was really so Upward Basketball was created to reach the community, and I think for some churches they did. But here's the thing: you're bringing in the community missionally, and you're basically telling them to act Christian even though they're not Christian, which is interesting in and of itself.
Right.
Because you're giving them the Christian framework without them being Christian. But that was an old school way of going, you've got to change to come into our programs. It's like, But then that's why I don't think people believe that I got kicked out of church leagues. I did.
I believe it.
Well, because you seen me on the basketball court.
Who won that game in Uganda?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. Don't lie.
Y'all seen one.
I was the assist master. I'm not sure I made a basket, and it did not look pretty when I shot it, but man, I knew who to pass it to.
Yeah. You saw how competitive I was. Oh. I ruined my pants and my shirt. I had to leave those in Uganda. That's where I'm trying to get. We act just like the world, but we're not teaching formation. We're just saying, like my youth pastor said, don't do that. Well, okay.
Right.
But what's and then going back to the actual theology, bringing heaven to earth. That was a running theme that I'm trying to get to, is by the way you engage and think about sports, are you understanding that God actually wants you to be a conduit to bring heaven on earth through the way you think and engage with sports?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, so you added that to the mission of God definition this week, thereby bringing heaven to earth.
Yeah.
Had that been there before?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the reason you wanted to highlight that this time?
The heaven and earth?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because if we can start thinking in simplistic terms, but it's more complex than just heaven and earth.
Sure.
I mean, but the simplistic notion is that you are the conduit by which God is bringing heaven to earth. Because people are living on earth and it's hell on earth. Yeah. With glimmers of good because of God's common grace, but his people are supposed to represent special grace, meaning this is what it looks like to live as a human being under the rule and reign of God, because they have had this revelation that Jesus is King. He's Savior. He saved them. He's changed them. He's redeemed them, reconciled them, given them his nature, his spirit, so that they might live out this rule and reign under the lordship of Christ, thus bringing heaven to earth.
Yeah, it feels like you're being more descriptive in the outcome of what happens, right? Yeah. When we reflect his glory, how do we reflect his glory in all spheres of life? Then what happens, right? Yep. And I think it may be assumed, but as you spell that out, I think it helps to paint the picture a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you gave us a history of sports. I do want to say my wife has a bone to pick with you.
Okay.
And my daughter, because we have this whole long list. You included badminton, and you didn't include water polo.
I did. Well, it was under polo.
That's not the same.
Well, polo, water polo.
Different sport.
Marco Polo. I mean, come on now.
So Kaylee was a goalie at Lyman for water polo. She grew up dancing, so that was on there.
I didn't have billiards on there.
You
didn't have fishing or hunting.
Oh, would those count as sport?
Yeah, actually would count as sport.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so my oldest, Kate, is now doing splash ball for the summer, which is the precursor of water polo. Okay. So she's getting to see wear the cap and do the whole thing.
I didn't want to do 3 different slides. Just one.
You had badminton.
I know.
Did you get anybody else giving you feedback of sports you missed?
Yeah, billiards.
That was okay.
Yeah, I had multiple people.
Several people?
And then somebody told me about fishing and hunting, so I had
to say it. Darts on there?
Darts was on there.
Okay. Oh, you had darts and not billiards. Oh, man. That's the danger of a list like that. Because I was like, I knew that they were going to be.
But it was great because it showed me that people were paying attention, that they were really into it.
Well, and it wasn't alphabetical, so you're looking.
But people appreciated the fact that I put esports on there.
Yeah, I bet. I figured. Cards. I appreciated chess.
Because that has been, as I researched, there is a point of contention because it's not physical exertion, but there is mental exertion.
Chess will wear you out. Yeah. So I can attest to that.
Yeah.
All right. As you went through the history of sports, what did you learn about sports?
Well, it was so fun because that's what I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn what's the evolution of sports, because I know it evolved.
Yeah.
Just like civilizations evolved.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know how, so I really did. And then one of the things that I love to do is I love to synthesize and put it in a framework. Mm-hmm. And that's what. And then, but what's so fascinating? I didn't know I was going to uncover this. But when you look at all of these different eras of sports throughout human history, and then now you look at modern sports, you're like, oh my gosh, it truly is a convergence of all of these different elements, which is very very fascinating. But a couple of things, like just to point people's attention to, is the idea of from 3000 BC to 800 BC, you do have sports as recreation, kind of survival, and then warfare. But but that makes sense because now they're doing javelin, sport, perfecting the javelin throw for 2 particular reasons. Why? Survival and warfare, hand-to-hand combat. It's for warfare. So there are elements of why you can see that they're trying to perfect a sport so that they could survive and even when they encountered war.
Yeah, and you can illustrate to your rival, your enemy.
Yeah,
this is how accurate I am.
Yeah, and then you move into the Greek culture. So what they led in the evolution of sports is competition and games, and for honor and fame.
Yeah.
That's different than the earlier part. So what they did is they took really same sports, added to the sport world, but then they're now going to create more of this competition element to it. And what was interesting too about I did have somebody come to me and said my Greek picture was wrong, in which they were correct, because they did it in the buff, they did it in the nude.
Oh yeah.
And the reason why they did that is because it goes to the religious element. Okay. Is that this was a way for them to honor the gods and to show the physique of human in relation to who, because they had demagogues. So like Hercules, in his physique. So that was why they would do it in the buff. And then you have Rome. They come in, and again, this is the known world, the evolution of the known world. Like the early part, that's your kind of Egyptian cultures, your kind of Eastern kind of cultures, but where we knew where these early civilizations existed. But then you have the kind of the Greek world, the Roman world, where again they're the vast empire, and so Rome is doing a whole different thing. So I love really charting the history of sports, really through these main civilizations that really did rule a lot of the known world at that time. Yep. But then when I had it, so this was interesting. So when I had it, there was this gap, and I'm like, well, what really happened during the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages? Because because Rome kind of ended really around really around 400, 500 AD. And because Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire was fracturing. So when the church really takes a hold, then you have a schism in the church. It's called the Great Schism. And then you have the Western Church and the Eastern Church. So you have the Roman Catholic Church and the Greek Orthodox Church. So it's fragmenting. And so really around 500 AD, you have this fracturing, and then it becomes more of these feudal systems that really begin to spread in Europe. And so I'm like, and then we call that the Dark Ages, between 500 AD and 1500 AD, because it's just a dark time for 1,000 years. So I'm like, okay, well, I wonder what sports. And so that's where I did even a deeper dive into, the Middle Ages and what was happening there. And then that's where, I understood that it was segregated recreational. It was brutal because you had villages, in some sense competing against villages, and it still kind of was this warfare training. Why? Because you have now this feudal system. Because in the Roman Empire, when you have this vast empire, there shouldn't be any, in some sense, fighting between villages and tribes. Right. It was the Roman Empire expanding their reach, but now when it's such a fractured now empire, and now everything is kind of concentrated regionally, now you have warfare again between the tribes. So it makes a good bit of sense. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it was fun doing the history.
It does, and that really obviously set the stage for the entire series and the end of that talk. You launched us into two questions that Christians should ask. I think they're worth stating again. How should Christians think biblically, theologically, missionally about sports? And then how should Christians engage and play sports Christocentrically and missionally? So think and then engage and play, like we talked about, the believe and behave. And then that leads us to that second talk, which is you lead us off with this faith framework that we have seen quite often. You put a little bit a new skin on it, so it looks. I love the questions that you asked. For worldview, how do we see sports? For mission, why do we do sports? Ethics, what are the right, wrong ways to do sports? And then maturity, how do we grow in our engagement with sports? And it it reminds me, just even asking those questions, I think so many of us can live the unexamined life. we can go through our life, whether it's with ourselves or with our families and our kids, not even stopping to ask those questions. And I really think that many Christian families aren't setting out to be just like the world and do things that are antithetical to following Christ, but we just kind of fall in line when we don't stop and consider questions like these. Yeah. Anything that stood out to you from doing the faith framework with this lens of sports?
No, I mean, from a theological perspective, no, but, really trying to unpack it from a sports, kind of element. And this is where I wanted just to locate the origin of sports and really unpack the subdue element. Because so you could even look at it as almost like a continuation of our technology series. Yeah. Because what you actually see with sports is actually tech. Is that you're creating an equipment, you're combining the raw materials, and then throughout the evolution, you're enhancing it through innovation. So it's really continuation from last year. Yeah. But then what it actually shows you, when you actually put that big map together, it actually, sports is a microcosm of the cosmos, where you have God originating the heavens and the earth in his mind. Then he speaks creation into existence, creating actual raw materials. But then he's actually going to give order and shape through systems and structures. Yeah. And so sports, actually the ending or the culmination of sports is a microcosm of the cosmos. Yeah. And I thought that was a pretty interesting thing when you look at it that way, when you put it all together. And then I couldn't spend the whole time, it's a big deal, but I mean, it's like, well, you got to move on because now that you have this now like framework of this microcosmos called a sport. Yeah. So whether it's baseball or basketball or badminton or water polo or billiards, like there's rules, competition and technique. Like there's a way to actually enhance how you participate in that sport according to its rules. But then you cannot forget the two other elements of what it means to be human. And that's the relationship component, because there are elements of that particular sport that consist of your relationship with other people, and then the operation. So I actually really loved kind of building that out to give people, again, even a better understanding that this really goes into what does it mean to be human. These are the three big, huge functions of what it means to be human. Mm-hmm. And I think I said it at the 11 o'clock, but the chimpanzee is not creating baseball. The chimpanzee is not creating soccer. They don't have the World Cup. I mean, but we do, because we're human. We've been created in the Imago Dei. We are unique. We are distinct. We are holy. We are separate from the rest of the created order. And so this is because this is what it actually means to be human and to reflect God, to actually bring heaven to earth. Yeah. When we are creating, we are imaging God. We don't think of it that way. No. Yeah. So then that's where, okay, so you've imaged God in what you've created in the sense of you've taken the raw materials that he's created and you've enhanced it, you've made it. And then, though, you don't stop there. Then you're now what you've created, how am I using this to relate to people? Yeah. And then actually, how am I stewarding what I've created? Yeah. Because again, those are what it means to be human. And then that's why I ended with, okay, so when you look at where God's leading everything in Genesis 1, when everything functions according to its design, God is glorified and there is human flourishing. There's flourishing. Yeah. And then that's where I wanted to say, so this is where I bring in Harvard, because let me tell you why I bring in Harvard in this regard. Because Harvard then, because now I've entered into an apologetic realm.
Okay.
Because now you have Harvard, which is a secular institution that has entered into the discussion of human flourishing. Like, they think that we ought to flourish as human beings. Now, why would we even think? Why would a secular institution think that human beings ought to flourish? Because innate within us is the image of God. That innate within us, we are built. We have been created to flourish. But the only way we flourish is to glorify God as we bring heaven to earth. Okay? So that's where I wanted to use their 6 markers, because I actually think they're good markers. And then how would those 6 markers relate to sports? In just a very simple, succinct way.
Yeah.
And then using the secular realm, then now I have something to compare it to of going, okay, well, in the world, are we flourishing?
Right.
So it's an apologetic, because what I'm trying to tell you is, while there are some good going on, man, there is a lot of brokenness and distortion going on in sports.
Yeah. Yeah, and that may have been the section where you talked about the distorted relationships, the distorted culture, and the distorted stewardship from conversations I had after. The biggest takeaways may have been from those sections. Yeah.
Well, because one of the things I think people intuitively know, even people in the world that don't even know Jesus, I think they I say intuitively, just because they've seen it, witnessed it, experienced it, that something's wrong.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to name it.
Yeah.
Now in Christian, in Christian life, I think there's something in us that goes, man, we should be acting like that. Like, what? Should we be spending this much money on it?
I think that's the danger when you have young kids and you just grow up in it. When you don't think critically, you actually, because of the busyness, because of the culture now, like, we can actually get lulled into keeping up with the Joneses, where we don't slow down long enough to actually recognize that.
Yeah.
So even though we may, and even though, the outsiders may look and say, yeah, there's something wrong, even as believers, we may not even give ourselves an opportunity to come to that reality. And now you're coming in on a Sunday, just trying to get a little Jesus and move on with my life, and you're just smacking us over the head with that reality. Yeah. Did you get any feedback to that end? Like any sort of, you are opening my eyes.
I had multiple people come up. I've never thought about not cheering for a mistake.
That was a really good example. That was a really.
I mean,
good
if you want to cheer for when the Chicago Bears field goal kicker makes a mistake, I mean, they're professionals. They get paid.
I cringe, man. That's like my least favorite part of sports is when a kicker misses it. Even the pros, man. That is,
you feel it for them.
I feel it.
Yeah. But I would even say, even in the college world, but here's what we've done, though. We have turned college sports into the professional realm, where if you don't win the national championship, something's wrong with you. And I'm telling you, that is not Christian at all. Because we're going to we're bound to make mistakes. So that's where I'm like, I'm almost even hesitant to do that, even in the college realm, because these are 18, 19-year-old, 20, 21-year-old kids. Unless you're the quarterback, Carson Beck with Miami, who's, I think he's 99 playing. I'm just joking. He was 27.
Yeah, older than you.
He's old. But here's the thing. He can make more money playing for the Miami Hurricanes than he can going to the NFL. Which shows you, like, that's a whole nother talk for a whole nother day, because this isn't an ESPN podcast where we're going to talk about the NIL. I do think it has damaged. It has damaged college sports, it has damaged kids, where they're now thinking about wealth, fame, fortune, than they are about an education and formation. So, and again, that's a theological issue I do have there, but. Nevertheless, yes. And somebody came up to me like, what would it look like if you were at a high school football game and when the opposing team missed a field goal, there was no cheering on the other side.
Yeah.
Like that would be eerie to people because, or what would it look like in a basketball game where the kid is there and he has 2 free throws to actually win the game.
Yeah.
And he misses both free throws. Now, sure, there's going to be a celebration.
Yeah.
Because you won the game.
Yeah.
But to prevent it from feeling like you're cheering for their mistake, and their.
Yeah, I had a vision of from your message of youth sports coaches. Creating these rules of engagement at the beginning of the season for both the parents and the players. Hey, this is who we are as a team, and parents, you are part of the team, and laying some of that out.
Yeah,
we encourage. That includes both teams, right? This is what success looks like. We're about the development. That would just change the whole dynamic. Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah, but. So yeah, that's a fascinating thing. You talked about the cost, the distorted stewardship. Man, 40 to $65K. Holy cow, that's college right there.
And again, I'm not telling you. I do think it's a distorted stewardship because I think you have to ask why are we doing this? And then if you're like a 3-sport family, why are we spending so much in competitive baseball, competitive soccer, competitive basketball? I do think now. Again, I'm recreationally. I mean that's obviously it's a significant decrease. So I wanted to put it there because there is a discrepancy between competitive. That's your travel, versus recreational over the lifetime of a child. So the question that and again, this is going to be part of the third week, at least part 1, is I'm going to give you at least several questions to ask. So again, I'm just setting it up of, again, distorted stewardship, but I do think one of the questions you have to ask, what's the goal here? Like, why are we spending so much money? Is there an investment? I could possibly here. Again, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here. I'm not trying to be Lloyd the legalist. But let's say, because I do know of some families right now that their 9th grader and 10th grader they're getting like Division I looks right now in scholarships. Okay, so because I actually know how much college is. So if your student's there and you're investing the $40,000-$65,000, there is a return on investment for that, really that 2% of the kids out there that's going to get a scholarship. But you have to really determine, does my kid show signs of getting that full ride at this college that does cost $50,000 a year? Are they going to get this partial scholarship, $20,000 a year? Okay, because then if it's $20,000, then you're right at that $40,000. So there might be but this is part of where I do believe in the stewardship and the operation part of it. It really is thinking. It is thinking from a holistic standpoint versus I'm just going to throw money at it, and then my child is the 93% of kids that aren't moving on to college sports, and even the 2% that are actually getting scholarship. Like, you really do have, because I can promise you what, and this is what maybe sometimes we just do it and we don't think about it. Youth sports has turned into a $1 billion industry because they know the stormtrooper parents out there that's just going to throw money at it because they can.
Stormtrooper parents?
You know what I mean by stormtrooper?
No.
If you've ever seen Star Wars, this is for my Star Wars people.
Okay.
Stormtroopers are very susceptible to the Jedi mind trick.
Oh, I see. And
so you don't need to see these droids. if you can just throw 40 to 65,000, you don't need to really ask deep questions. And we don't ask deep questions. We just throw it because we can, or we just make sacrifices for our kids because our parents couldn't make sacrifices. So we just want to give our kids what we couldn't get. You know, so that's where you have to understand your motivation. This is what Tim Keller taught, and I completely believe it, is that you are more depraved, you are more dark and sinful than you ever dared to dream, but God is more gracious than you could ever dare to imagine. Because here's the thing, I've got to actually understand what's my motivation behind this. And here's the thing, if I'm throwing $40,000 to $65,000 to my kid, but I can't give the church, $10,000 a year, we got a problem. Like if you're able to throw that amount of money to your kids, but you only tip God, there's something imbalanced about that. And I can promise you what we've seen in the church world with the decrease in tithes and offerings and the decrease in actual, nonprofit giving, but there's been this increase in giving to our kids to play competitive sports. There is an imbalance there in many Christian families. I'm not going to say all Christian families, but some Christian families. And so again, you've got to ask yourself those questions. That's discipleship. That's formation.
Well, and the other side of that is not just the scholarship, because I do think that's an allure, but a lot of times we talk about character, and you even brought that up. You said, but sports shapes character, and you asked a really good question. What character are you shaping? And I think that's where, as we can think a little more critically, and that causes then many parents to step into coaching roles because they want to shape character a little more differently.
They step into a role that they don't even know the techniques for the sport, so they're not even able to teach the sport.
It's a challenge.
Because only a third of recreational coaches have any kind of understanding to the sport they're coaching. Yeah. Now, see, I coach T-ball and baseball, and I coach basketball. I at least had a high school, because I actually, it's funny. I told my mom I need pitchers, and my mom was gone on vacation, and because I played in high school. In high school, I played golf, baseball, basketball, and tennis. I was a 4-sport athlete in high school.
Not badminton?
Not badminton. And I did play football growing up, but I was small, so I didn't want to get hit.
You were small.
I was small, yeah. I was small, yeah.
I know, yeah.
And I played baseball competitively until I went into high school. Yeah. Because competitive leagues really started around the 80s and 90s. I'm almost 100% sure, but 99% sure that's really where competitive leagues really started. They're out of control at this point because now you have the A team, the B team, and the C team. Back then, you only had the A team. These are the people. And then, but when you went into high school, that was the competition in the 90s, and so. But I remember prior to getting in high school, we started to travel and go all over Tennessee and other places. And my mom's like, you ain't missing church. And I argued with my mom. I remember it was one Wednesday where I didn't want to go to church because I wanted to go practice. She's like, no, your butt will be at church. Church is important. And so this is part of where I think the previous generation, we made church optional. For our kids who are now in competitive sports, because that's when the tournaments are. They're on Saturday and Sunday. Now, one of the things that I will tell you, I'm a missional. I really am. I'm a missional guy. I'm a missionary by nature now that I've studied the mission of God, and so that's one of the reasons why we do have I love a Saturday night service, and also love a Monday night service. Yeah. And again, I'm not the Lloyd the legalist saying that you need 100% attendance, for 52 weeks out of the year, but I actually think that corporate worship ought to be a priority in the life of not only individuals but the life of families. Mm-hmm. That if you teach your kids that church is optional, they're going to grow up thinking church is optional, and then
it's a choice that you families and parents make. You count the cost.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the the season. You say, hey, this is how many Sundays it's going to be, and this is how many weekends we're going to be away, and we are or aren't going to pay that cost.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's end with this. You gave us these two, what did you call them, equations, function or identity, and it was really you were getting at the importance of which one comes first.
Yeah.
Does function come first, or does identity come first? And really, when function comes first, you lead with this, what you do. That then shapes your identity, shapes who you are. That equals a broken image. But if you lead with this identity of who we are, who humans are, we are God's creation, His children, His representation, to bring heaven on earth, that then follows and leads into the function of what we do to reflect. And that equals the image of God. So talk about the importance of getting the order of those two right.
I mean, it's the order of Genesis. Is God?
I thought we were graduating away from Genesis, man. Let's move on.
Like, it's just so hard. It's kind of hard. It's just hard, because that's the origin. So, and this is where, like, if you want to know somebody's intent, who they are, you want them to tell their story. Where they started, what they went through, all of that. Well, this is where the origin of humanity plays such an essential role in what we do today. And so when God starts with image, so God created them in His image and in His likeness. Before we even see the gender distinction of male and female, we see that mankind, humanity, was created in the image and likeness of God. Well, we are to reflect, we are to be like, we're not to be Him, but that was the sin. Humans wanted to be Him.
You're right.
And so when you want to be Him, you usher in who you are, now, because you usher in rebellion, you usher in treason.
Right.
But this is where when God redeems us, we keep in mind who we are. We're God's image bearers. We are His children. We are His people. We are image bearers meant to bring heaven to earth. We're citizens of heaven. This is who we are. And then it leads to, okay, well, what did He want us to do? He wanted us to relate, create, and operate. So then, therefore, when we start with image, then we can move to how our function as human beings is fleshed out based upon who we are. But when you do reverse those, so, Joni was telling me, we were having a really good conversation after. She's like, I know you've taught on that formula before, but it hit me in a different way today. And what hit her, and I don't think she would mind me sharing this, but Caleb is 20, Ellie's 18, about to move into college, and now things for her and me are getting real. That we have Luke left, and we only have 4 years with him, and so when we have an empty house, Joni's like, she has to preach this truth to herself, is that my identity is not a mom. That's not who I am. I'm not a mom. That's what I do. I do I do mom things in my relationship with my kids. But that's not who I am. And so she has to keep in mind that who I am is a child of God, and I am a mother who does motherly things. And one of the things that's so hard for me right now is like, oh my gosh, really? They really are on loan for us for 18 years. They're like on loan for us. And then they're going to really live, if they live to the average age of 75 to 80, they're going to spend well over the majority of their life as when I say a young adult to adult, without us having to. Now, we will always be their parent.
Yeah, but out of the house, yeah.
But that's not our identity. That's our function. And our function, how we relate to them, how we shape them, and how we steward them. That they really are. And I told John, like, we are literally just a manager and a steward of our kids. That's not who, but that's not our identity. And so that hit her as a mom this week. But this is where, again, you apply it to sports. Think of how, again, disclosure. I mean, you may not like that I watch this, but it's okay. I mean, I don't mind telling you. Those who
we're 45 minutes in, so.
Yeah.
If you made it this far.
But so I think I've shared on here that I've watched Ted Lasso.
I think so.
So I think it's actually in the first season where Roy Kent, he's already getting to retirement age. Yeah. And so I may be in the second. No, I can't remember. I think it's the first season because he comes on as a coach the second season.
Don't ruin it for me. I've only seen season 1.
Oh, sorry. All right. Anyways, but when he retires, he's depressed because his identity has been tied to being a soccer player. And so when he retires, he doesn't know who he is anymore.
Yeah.
He's like, all I know is Roy Kent, the footballer.
Yeah.
I don't know of Roy Kent anyway. And so, right. but that is a huge element of a television series that really does depict the world in which we live. Is that these kids, the reason why 47% of high school athletes are depressed is because they've tied their identity into that particular sport. If not all 47% of them, is that they somehow think, and that's part of where us as Christians, we feed their identity crisis when they mess up, and we cheer for them because we're cheering for our kid winning because we say winning is everything. Well, if you lose, then you've lost a part of your identity. That's where we've got to redeem. Christians, we're not asking the world to redeem the sport. But Christians should redeem the sport and how we, again, believe, think, and behave and act when it comes to sports.
I think that's a good place to end today.
Well, so Northland family and friends. Oh, man, I can't wait. We got 2 more weeks, and I can't, next week's going to be, I really do. I worked on it today, and I'm like, oh, this would be great. I think this will be a great way of breaking part 1, part 2 down. But then week 3 will be special. Because we're going to introduce something, and I can't wait. I can't wait because we want to play a role here at Northland. We want to play a role in redeeming sports for the glory of God and the good of the world. So until next week, blessings.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.